as a leader is how do you help your people grow and do what they want
Yes.
to do and build the career that they want that fits for their lives. And sometimes that's not maybe, it's not leading a team. It's being where you are and being the best individual contributor you can be. And so I think that that's another kind of key element of a at least from a people leader side is helping your team build the career and the life that they want.
Welcome to Breaking Ground, Women in AEC Leadership podcast. This is the show that lifts the voices, journeys, and insights of women shaping the future of architecture, engineering, and construction, and it's brought to you by Unanet. If you're in the architecture, engineering, or construction space, you know how critical it is to keep your projects on time, your teams aligned, your pipeline growing, and your finances in check. That's where Unanet comes in. We have project based ERP solutions, CRM solutions, and an AI growth suite built specifically for AEC firms. I'm your host, Reanna Dempsey. In each episode, we will connect with professionals across the AEC industry to share real stories and hard earned wisdom. At our core, we believe that a strong, diverse workforce drives innovation and success, and that women are essential to building the future of AEC. This is more than a conversation, it's a community focused on growth and lasting impact. So let's get started. Today, we are speaking to Joyce Watson, and this is so fun for me because, again, I feel like I'm going to meet new people through doing the podcast. This is not one of those situations. I've gotten to know Joyce over the past few years, and I'm super excited to talk to you today. So, welcome, Joyce.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yay. So we try to bring a little bit of fun into the podcast. And we both said before we started recording that we're not caffeinated, which is really, I don't know what that's going to mean. I'm sorry for our listeners if we are not with it today, but we're gonna try without coffee to have some fun. So first thing I want to ask, I'm a huge music buff, so I always am interested in knowing kind of what's a song that always gets you hyped, no matter what kind of day you're having. You hear that song and it's gonna put you in a good headspace.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who know me, you probably know I'm a really big Backstreet Boys fan. So I have to say "Everybody" by the Backstreet Boys.
Nice, nice. Millennials unite there. That was my era as well. I love that. Did you go see they're touring, right? Are you
I
going?
did. I just saw them at the Sphere, and
You went to the Sphere to see
I
him?
did. It was incredible. It is I recommend anyone see any kind of show at the Sphere. It is a whole experience, and I may or may not have tickets to see them again,
Oh,
December, so
that is
big
amazing.
fan, and it's a lot of fun.
That is on my bucket list, so, you're not the first person to tell me that, so I've gotta make it out there. Okay, so let's give our listeners just a high level bio, maybe 2 minutes or less, kind of include some personal, professional highlights, but just, whatever feels meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised outside of Boston in a town called Arlington. I grew up there, and then I moved all the way across the country for college. I went to USC, so fight on, go Trojans. Where I studied history and I minored in French and just enjoyed that city. And when I graduated, I had applied to Teach for America. And so Teach for America took me to where I am now, San Antonio, Texas. I taught special ed K through 5 for 2 years. And I did resource, which is essentially pulling kids out for small group or pushing in to support them in their classrooms. And then after 2 years, I was realized that wasn't, my passion forever. And so I wanted to move into something different. So I found myself in AEC by finding Cleary Zimmermann Engineers, and I've been here ever since. It'll be 11 years with CZ in November. So it's been a long time, and I've grown a lot. The firm has grown a lot, and it's been a wonderful ride so far.
Yeah, so history, French major to teacher, then entering, so Cleary Zimmerman, but you
Mhm.
refer to them as CZ. We can say
Yeah.
CZ. Okay,
Yes.
so everyone knows that. And you then so that background, and then you just jumped in starting as I think it was a marketing assistant, right?
Yeah, I had honestly no industry experience, but I could write and I could think, and so they took a risk on me, and I learned everything I know on the job and through SMPS, and I've always loved cities, and so I think being a part of the built environment and helping create that even in the really early stages, is part of why I find this work so rewarding.
That is awesome. And so, I'm just gonna say, I feel like you are on the younger range for becoming a principal, in your firm. So I think, a lot of our listeners will be like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And I would just love to hear just how did that transpire? Like, so you started as marketing assistant. Kind of give us your journey, and I'll jump in and might ask some question, but would love to just hear how that all happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I started as a marketing assistant and pretty quickly was promoted to marketing coordinator. And while I was in that role, we implemented Unanet around 2016. And that, fittingly enough for this podcast, really became my calling card. I saw as a marketing coordinator that it would help me be much more efficient, personally in my work. And so I was generating resumes and project sheets and project lists and really dove into that and became known locally as a Unanet expert. And people would call me and ask for my opinion if they were looking at a system or if they were having, trouble implementing theirs. I started speaking about it at the regional level and then sort of the national level at the Champions Conference. And so people started to know me for my CRM expertise. And so becoming an expert in that helped raise my profile locally. And
And
then
what are the types of projects, like, just to talk a little bit about CZ, like, what types of projects, what do you guys specialize in?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cleary Zimmermann Engineers, we're a Texas MEP firm. So that's mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We also offer IT security, commissioning, water, wastewater, and industrial MEP.
Okay.
We're a pretty, full service engineering firm on the building system side. And our mission is to serve as a high touch creative engineering partner for complex building projects. So we focus on those institutional projects, higher ed, healthcare, industrial, K through 12, government. Those are our bread and butter market sectors. We're very diverse in terms of our project types and size. We work across the state. We've got offices. We were founded here in San Antonio, but we've got offices in Bryan College Station, Houston, Austin, and soon to be Dallas. So we're statewide, and I've been here for all of that growth. So it's been a very exciting few years.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Texas, so I imagine there's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
it's a massive state. Sometimes I live in Maryland and sometimes I forget, wow, like I could fit a lot of Marylands inside of your state. So that is very exciting. Cool.
Yeah, very lucky. It's a very robust economy here in Texas.
Yes. So, okay, so then you're working your way up as marketing coordinator. You're, kind of making a name out in the industry, like you mentioned, SMPS, which I bet a lot of people on listening in know about that organization. If you don't, definitely look it up. That's a great org. But so, what happened next?
Yeah. So honestly, as I think a lot of people experience, my previous boss left. She moved on to a different firm. And at that point, I really had what in retrospect was a golden opportunity. And so I went into my boss's office and I threw my hat in the ring. I said, I don't know what you're thinking about for the director role, but I'd love to be considered. Um, and they were open enough to give me the opportunity, even though, at the time I was arguably underqualified, but they took a risk, and I have learned so much. I learned so much on the job, and was just able to really step into my own as a leader, and really shore up our marketing processes. Firm wide at that point, we had two offices, and so starting to expand our geographic reach was key, and of course, shore up the systems. At that point, we had just been using Unanet for marketing materials and opportunities, and then we moved into using it to generate our fee proposals. So it became a critical part of our business process for everyone in the entire firm, and it made sure that we had a lot of great data in the system that we could then use on the marketing side. And so as we continue to grow, a few years later, I was promoted to principal, and I was actually the first non-technical principal in the firm's history, as well as the first female principal, which was kind of cool. Uh,
Very nice.
yeah, and for me, I at that time, I really took some time to think about how do I make being a principal different from being a director? Because
Mm.
when I was a director, I was still, kind of looking down and figuring out how do we get this done as opposed to looking like up and out, and be more external facing. And really, I think the biggest difference is if you're thinking strategically, operationally, and tactically, as a principal, my goal is to mostly operate in that strategy space and dipping down into operationally when I need to, but hopefully but I've set up we've set up the systems and the processes and built the team to allow me to focus more outward. I've been doing a lot more public speaking. I've spoken at a bunch of conferences. I serve on nonprofit boards and organizations here in town. So really being a primary marketing representative for the firm is a key part of my role now.
And so, one of the things I wanna double click on, it sounds like you didn't have a, solid plan and a roadmap when you started that was like, "I'm going to do this and this and this," and you even said you didn't even know if you were qualified for the role, but you went in and you asked anyway, and I think something and like, listen, I'm not an expert on, the difference between males and females in the workplace, it's just based on my experience, but I feel like men a lot of times are just willing to be like, "Well, I'll go try," and, maybe I don't know, as women, I think the imposter syndrome kicks in and we're like, "Oh, well," like you said, "Well, I'm not an expert in the subject, I'm not an actual engineer myself, and I'm non-technical." You probably could have talked yourself out of it very easily. So I think that's an important part of your journey is like you didn't even like you said, I just threw my name in the hat and I wanted, so maybe think how was your headspace when you were going into that conversation?
Yeah, I think is it Mindy Kaling who her book is called Why Not Me? And I
I
was like,
think so, yeah.
why not me? They got
Yeah.
who else are they get like, like who else are they gonna use? Obviously, there's lots of great candidates out there, but I felt like I knew the firm inside and out. I knew what we still needed to. I mean, obviously, we always still have things we need to work on, but I knew what we were doing well. I knew how we could continue to grow and to be able to take the reins and build a team that has allowed us to do that. It was really exciting, and it's funny. I think another part of my journey was that and I'll tell people this, I felt like I was the longest tenured marketing coordinator anywhere. I had a marketing coordinator title for 5 years, uh,
Mm.
and which is a long time, and there were moments where I was like, "Man, like, is what should I do?" But a couple of things happened. I think CZ was willing to carve out a way for me to we were already having kind of discussions before my old boss put in her notice as to what other paths for growth that I could have, whether it was, a CRM specialist or helping to manage the building. We were exploring those. And also, um, just I loved the people I was working with and the work we were doing, and so I didn't wanna go anywhere else, and so I think there's especially, I'm a millennial through and through. I was born in 1990, and so I think there's a lot of millennials, jump jobs a couple of times, in search of title or whatever, and I think there is something to be said for kind of staying where you are for a minute and seeing what you can build where you're at.
Yes, yeah, it's the instant gratification and the expectation that, "Oh, I'll work here for a year and then I'll magically just move into leadership," versus, yeah, like, actually diving a bit deep, so I that resonates with me as well.
Being
Um,
able to build something and just under the compound interest of time is the most powerful force in the world. Because Warren Buffett, I think, maybe says that, but I found it to be true, in my career as well, and I think a lot of the success that I've personally had and that the firm has had, um, is due to that, kind of institutional knowledge, staying and growing here instead of, moving on to something different.
yeah. Well, and so I mean, making the jump to principal, is that something like, did you set your mind on that? Is that something that, like, just because of the results you were getting for the business, like, how did that actually transfer? And you mentioned first female principal, so you're
Mhm,
breaking a little bit of a previous, glass ceiling, whatever you want to call
mhm.
it. And what did that all entail?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because around the when I've been with the firm about 8 years, I started thinking about, man, like, looking at the other principals and thinking, "I think I could do that," and it was kind of something that I had started to think about, and I was like, "Well, if I don't make it there by the time I'm with the firm 10 years, I'm gonna go to bat, I'm gonna advocate for it." And then I was very pleasantly surprised that I was offered the position as a because of the results that I'd been getting for the firm. I didn't have to go to bat and fight for it, and I was really I think I cried, honestly, when they told me. Um I really just truly felt honored, and I felt, recognized for everything that I had done for the firm and everything that and I say I, but it's really the whole marketing team, what we had been building together, over the past, 8 years at that point. And so then once I had that role and I sort of had um the charge to do more, that was when I really leaned into thinking, how can we go bigger? How can we do what people aren't expecting, from an MEP engineering firm? And the team that I've been able to build, and with the support obviously of our the rest of our leadership, is much more full of specialists now. I think in the beginning of my career, I had a perhaps a naive belief that we all needed to be able to jump in wherever we could and that we should all be generalists, because I'm a generalist at
Yeah.
heart. Um,
Yeah.
but the more I sat in the leadership seat, I realized, no, we need to, the specialization is the key to civilization. And so now we've got dedicated people for proposals and for social media, and, for video. And so we've been able to just do so much more at such a higher level because we have people who are really good in their respective roles. And I think really we've been able to kind of punch above our weight class creatively and in the amount of, deliverables that we're able to put out both on the kind of digital marketing side and on the proposal side, because we have that specialization within our team.
Nice. So, and that is amazing to hear that because I do think, I've talked to a lot, especially now that the podcast is going, we're talking to a lot of women in these industries, and there are the cases where they've had to fight and go and ask two, three. So it's nice to hear, hey, you know what? Sometimes companies still just recognize the results and are able to, award people based on their abilities. And I guess now, now you're sitting as a principal, like you said, strategic leader within the
Mhm.
firm. Like, what do you think? Because, people could be sitting here listening and be like, why does it even matter that we have women leaders? That's not my belief. But is there something that you think women uniquely bring to leadership? Specifically, anything that you've seen or any examples that you can point to where it was like, hey, the fact that we had different perspectives and different backgrounds, like, really actually helped us in a certain situation.
Yeah. And I think kind of tying the previous point together, I think one of the other key things I learned in being a principal is, or what allowed me to elevate to that level, was you always have to be thinking about the good of the firm and what will
Mm.
make the difference for the firm in any situation. And so I think part of what I contribute, as a woman at the leadership table, is perhaps a different perspective in some situations. Maybe I'm thinking more holistically about the dynamics of a situation, or I bring a different angle. Um, and I think that is something that might get lost, if you don't have any women at your leadership table, because again, we all bring different strengths. And for me, I think my opinion has always been really respected. Even before I was a principal, I would say I was a trusted advisor to our firm leadership, kind of all across all levels. And I think that's something else. Um, that so that sometimes women end up filling that role because they have a different perspective than perhaps, the engineers or the other technical personnel on your team. And so I think just being, and also not being afraid to say it. I think
Uh-huh.
that it's one thing to think it, it's another thing to have the confidence, honestly, to go in and maybe say something that is unpopular or could be controversial. And again, it's not like I'm in there rocking the boat every day, but if there's something that I think is, I'm always my, I'm principal of marketing, so my goal is to guard the reputation of the firm. And so if I feel like something is taking us in a direction that doesn't help the reputation of the firm, I'm always going to stand up for it because I'm always thinking about the firm as a whole.
Where do you think your confidence comes from? Because I think that's another thing. Again, not trying to generalize, though, there's a million super confident women out there, but sometimes I think, even in my own career, I think I hesitated, especially in my earlier days, and I'm like, "Why would I not have just," like, I'm a pretty blunt person normally, but I do talk to a lot of women that they don't feel, like, empowered to just go in and say those things, like, where do you think your confidence has come from, just that lets you get in there, you
You
know?
know, that's a great question. I feel like knowing, like, this sounds sort of trite, but, like, knowing myself, like, you
Mhm.
need to, like, know thyself first, and I'm I'm going to I have clear areas of expertise and authority, and being an authority in those certain areas, I think, has allowed me to feel really confident, making a decision or interjecting in those areas, and it's like a muscle, right? The more you do it, the
Yes.
easier it gets. And
Yes.
so now if there's something that maybe it's not exactly, something that I would consider myself an expert in, but I've got an opinion on it and I think it would benefit the firm, then I'm going to do it. And the worst people can say is no. And sometimes they do. Um, but you just have to do it. And don't apologize for being who you are. I'm a non-Texan, I'm a Texan by marriage, but, I'm a Yankee from, back east, and so I think I'm I'm used to just, making, being coming a part of wherever I am and wanting to grow it into the best thing it can be. And uh, I just I don't know. I just go with it, which is not great advice, but I just think that just every person brings something different to the table, and no one else is going to have your exact thoughts, your opinions. So you have
Yes.
to be the one to say it.
No, and I totally agree with that. It's a muscle. Like we think we work out all the other things where we want to get
Mhm.
better and improve. So yeah, it's like if you could just think of it that way, I think that's a really good piece of advice. Like just get the reps in. You start
Yeah,
getting reps in, and you
exactly.
become yeah, you'll be
Yes.
able to speak. I remember early in my career, like sitting in a meeting and I knew something at my core, but it was very controversial.
Mhm.
I remember I was just delaying and mulling it over and the
Yeah.
conversation's going, and then, like, my counterpart next to me speaks up and says exactly what I was gonna say. It was a dude, and he was known for just being like, "Whatever," and I was like, "You know, why did" like, I felt the same way, and he would have
Mhm.
backed me up and, but I felt this weird and after that, I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do that again." Like, I'm gonna so listen to your, like, gut, I would say.
Yes.
Like, if it's there and you're like, don't hold yourself back from saying something.
No. No,
So
I don't. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Because at the end of the day, like, especially if it's somewhere where you've been for a while and like, and your heart's in the right place, like, if you come from the highest of light with anything, people will understand that, even if they disagree. Like, it doesn't,
exactly, what's the worst that could happen? You share something,
yes.
yeah, and somebody doesn't agree. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so scary. Yeah.
Yeah, and in most, yeah, I'm sure you experience this too. Like, we're making a lot of decisions. We're moving fast, and so
Yep.
you just have to roll with it. And if some things don't go your way this time, maybe they'll go your way the next time. But again, it's
Yep.
not really about your way. It's about what's best for the firm. And
Yes.
just, as long as you keep that in mind, you won't go astray.
And I love that lens of just how you described what your responsibility is because I think sometimes people think I mean, me, I've never been in marketing. Obviously, we have marketing. I know
Mhm.
what marketing is, but you tend to think, "Oh, you're responsible for promoting and proposals and land," but it's like the reputation of like when you look at it through that lens, I think that really changes and shifts like what your responsibility is, and I think that makes a lot of sense to me. That really landed when you said that.
Yeah, I would say, the reputation and growth of the firm are my ultimate responsibility. If people ask me what am I ultimately responsible for, it's our reputation and our growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and going back, so I mean, again, and I love hearing stories because we talk to more and more people that are non-technical working in these firms. So they didn't go to school to be an architect or an engineer, but now they're working in these spaces and trying to navigate how do I see my leadership journey? Like, is there a certain defining moment where you felt yourself stepping into leadership for the first time, or was it organic? Like, just, how did you think about leadership, I guess?
That's a great question, and I can't think of a particular moment, but maybe it was the first time people started coming to me for answers to questions. Um, small, large, whatever. And I knew the answers. Again, that's another muscle. Like, the more you know and the more you can speak authoritatively, the more you'll build your confidence and the more people will start to see you as that expert and that resource. Um, I would say, if I had to pick one distinct moment, it actually is prior to my time at CZ when I was teaching. And because I was a special education teacher, I was also a case manager. And so I had a caseload of students, and I was in charge of their implementing their individualized education plan or their IEP and getting them the services that they were legally required to
Mhm.
have. And at and I was a teacher fresh out of college, 22, 23, 24. And so, and even just being a teacher that young, you are the adult in the room. You're in charge. You're public speaking all day, every day for, 200 days of the year. Um, and so you just have to kind of grow up and do it. And so that was probably the first time I really acted as a leader. And I think again, just doing that for 2 years straight and being legally responsible for delivering these services was the first time I had to be a leader. And so then when I had the opportunity to be a leader in the at Cleary Zimmermann, in the AEC industry, it didn't feel foreign. I was like, okay, here we go. And at that time, I had supervised a paraprofessional while I was
Oh,
a teacher, and he was someone who was a lot older, though probably double my age.
yep.
And so even just having that little bit of practice, I think helped. And I can't speak enough of serving on boards or in nonprofit organizations. When I was probably 23, I joined the junior league and I served in the junior league for 10 years. And I served on the board of SMPS locally. And I've served on the board of the Young Women's Leadership Academy here in San Antonio and on the board of the Real Estate Council. And so just being a leader in places perhaps outside of your firm can help
Mhm.
again work that muscle, learn how organizations make decisions, how to collaborate and negotiate, and just build those strengths up outside of your actual profession. But a lot of that all has positive impacts on your actual profession. So I think that
Yes.
is something I recommend for everyone is getting plugged in, no matter where you are, whether it's personal, whether you're interested in the rodeo or the ballet or whatever it is you're passionate about, getting involved on an organizational level uh, will pay dividends that you don't even realize.
That is great. Yes. I almost wish I would have gotten involved sooner in things like that because I totally agree. And it's funny because that's what I get asked this question sometimes if I'm in mentor conversations and people
Mhm.
are like, how did you get to your position? And I'm like, I don't think because it's kind of like what you were saying. Like I tended to stay places a bit long and I don't think I ever consciously like, thought I want to be a leader, but, like, what you were talking about, you're like, I just asked questions and people started coming to me, and then when our team had grown organically, they needed a leader in a certain role and they approached me about it. I was like, "Me? Why?" I mean, I don't have any experience in managing people or any of this stuff, but they're like, "Yeah, but all the things are there that you need. You just need to trust that you know what you're doing," and it's because sometimes I think we just put leadership and roles and titles on, like, a pedestal that doesn't need to be there because you can be a leader long before you're leading people. And you could choose to be a leader that doesn't I have someone on my team, she knows who she is. She is at a point in her life, she's like, I want to do what I'm doing as an individual contributor. This is giving me a great sense of satisfaction, even though I know she could do more. That's a decision she's intentionally making, but she's still a leader. I don't look at her and think, oh, you're not in charge. You don't have people under you, so you're not a leader. That's not how I think most people view leadership. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the again, you always have to play to your strengths, right? And some people are people leaders and other people are project leaders or whatever, and also just leading from where you are. I was leading from where I was as a marketing coordinator taking charge of Unanet.
yep,
And
yep,
so that was, my first, being the go-to person for questions. Again, it just once you this sounds cheesy, but like once you start, you kind of can't stop. Like
yep,
because you at least for me, I enjoy being helpful and helping people do what they want to do. And to your point about the person on your team, like that as a leader is how do you help your people grow and do what they want
yes.
to do and build the career that they want that fits for their lives. And sometimes that's not maybe it's not leading a team. It's being where you are and being the best individual contributor you can be. And so I think that's another kind of key element of a at least from a people leader side is helping your team build the career and the life that they want.
Yes. Yeah, that is the rewarding part for me too, I would say. You just nailed that. Um, so I guess going back to so now you're the sole female principal. Um are there things that now as an organization like CZ is doing to, kind of bring together because all the stats are out there, like you probably know them. There's tons of women architects and engineers flooding into the workforce, but like the leadership and, ratio is still very, very much skewed towards the male side. Like, are you guys, doing anything internally to, bring women together?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we have a women in engineering group, and so I'm actually not a part of it because I'm not an engineer.
Oh,
But
that's right.
we have they meet monthly. and they try to get together quarterly to meet in person. And it's really an opportunity to build community amongst our female engineers. And they will read. They did like a book club. There's a book called She Engineered that they read. They'll volunteer together at UT Day of the Girl, and basically just provide an opportunity to again build that community. And each meeting, um, one person will kind of lead the charge and bring like a topic or an article that they want to talk about, um, and and use that to frame the discussion. And then there's kind of the ongoing teams chat, where they can go and to rely on each other for extra support if need be. But I think it just um, it helps provide just community within the firm. And for me, since I'm not a female engineer, I have found that having great mentors both inside and outside the firm has made all the difference for me. My old
Yes.
boss, Krista Reed, she was amazing. She taught me so much. And Danny Zimmerman, who's our CFO, I'm an executive or principal. He's taught me, even more, especially about the leadership side, and thinking firm wide. And then, externally, I have to actually credit Unanet for connecting me with one of my favorite mentors, Lisa Martin.
Oh,
She
yes.
they
Yes.
with Skill Bane. And we met at a Unanet event, and she's been such a great resource, someone who's done this at such a bigger scale and just helping me think about how we can grow and my growth. She's been a great sounding board. And then I've got a peer mentor in Corinne Williams with Method Architecture, and we meet up monthly for coffee and just talk shop. And our firms are very similar in size and our goals, and just having kind of building my own community at that
Yes.
point. And then the marketing team, I learned something. There's 7 of us now. I learn something from them every single day. And so I think just being open to learning from
Mhm.
anyone, everywhere, anytime, I think is critical to keep you sharp, and in service of not only of yourself but of your firm. So you're not just complacent with what you've been doing, but you're always looking to grow and just get better any way you can.
Yes. Well, and it sounds like the culture at CZ enables that, which is it's awesome to hear about that group. It's starting to hear a lot of more of those types of groups popping up within the walls of firms, which is exciting. And so I just remembered, it sounds like you love Cleary Zimmerman, and I feel like you love it more than a lot of people. Like you really love your work because you're sort of married to it. Do you want to? I
I
remember
am.
hearing this story. Can you just tell us about that little fun tidbit?
Yes, absolutely. So I met my husband, Thomas Watson, here at Cleary Zimmerman. He leads our engineering team in San Antonio. And we met at the office. And funnily enough, this sounds lame, but I promise it was cool. We got married at the office. So we office in a historic building in downtown San Antonio. Um, and when we got engaged, we were thinking about, oh, yeah, where should we get married? And we have an old warehouse in the back of our building, and it dates from the 1920s, and it used to be a tractor supplier distributor warehouse. It's got these big, beautiful green doors and brick, and it's just really a very industrial chic. So we ended up getting married in the warehouse, Danny, and we were gracious enough to let us use it, and it was wonderful. So yeah, I work with my husband, which is really uh, it's such a joy, honestly, to be able to see each other shine every day, and just get to sort of see each other in the course of doing business. And I think that it definitely helps to have. I mean, I love everybody here, but I especially love him. So it's nice to get to see him in the course of my day sometimes.
You're gonna get all these random people on your Instagram trying to find pictures of this cool warehouse wedding. I can picture it. I can picture it. I bet it's
They're
awesome.
on there. The dramatic kiss photo, I think, is on there. So
Oh, there you go. I love it. I'm probably gonna go look. I'm not
yeah.
gonna lie. I don't go on there very often, but this would be fun to check out.
Can I put in a plug for our social media while we're here?
You can, yes.
So I think our social media, depending on who's listening, we're actually pretty well known for our social media. We were the first AEC firm to go viral on TikTok. Um,
Oh, look at
yeah, so we've had things get up to 8.4 million views. So we like to have fun here at our offices, and so we like to showcase our culture, and just what it's like to be a CZer on our social media. So if you haven't
that
had
is
a chance yet,
huge.
yeah,
Congrats on the viral TikTok status. That's amazing.
thank you, thank you. Check us out at Cleary Zim. I'm sure we'll drop all the links in the show notes.
Yes, yes. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that because I just remembered that was such a fun little part of your journey is that yeah, you kind of are married to your work literally, which is okay in this situation.
It is.
Um, so what is because I could keep talking to you for hours as you know. But we try to, wrap it up, keep this at about 30 minutes. So,
Yep.
what is one piece of advice that you would just leave us with if, people are listening in at all different walks of their career journey? What's a piece of advice you have for us?
Yeah, I would just say play to your strengths at the end of the day because they're going to take you farther and you're going to have more fun while you're doing it. But also be aware that as you grow, your strengths will grow. Like you'll have more strengths to choose from that you can play to. And so I think that just to avoid doing what you're good at and what you're naturally inclined, but then also once you develop those extra skills, keep growing in that direction, and it'll take you much further than trying to shore up your weaknesses. And I think building a team around you or being part of a team that has a diverse set of skills, that way you can bring your best to the table, to me has been the key to success.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you joining the podcast. This is seriously the best part of my job now, getting to talk to all of these awesome women. So, I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to our Breaking Ground podcast. And if today's episode resonates with you, please be sure to follow, leave a review, or share it with someone in your network. And if you have a story to share, please send us an email. Our contact information is in the podcast bio. We're constantly looking to hear more, just be introduced to more great people and hear more great stories. So until next time, keep breaking new ground.